From the 22 News Plus studio, this is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of InFocus. I'm your host, Patrick Berry. This is an exciting show. I've got a broadcast veteran in the studio, in the 22 News Plus studios with me today. Sitting across the desk from me, a famous name you may recognize, both face and name, John O'Brien. John, thank you so very much for joining me. I greatly appreciate your coming in today.
That's a lot of pressure to put on me, assuming that it's going to be an excitable show, but we'll see what we can do.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to break this conversation up into multiple chunks.
Sure.
First, I want to talk about your career in broadcasting.
All
right. You started in broadcasting when? As a teenager, when you got interested in it?
Actually, yeah. At 19 I went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting back in, I believe, 1979. Immediately after I graduated, I was lucky enough to get a job at a station down in Hartford where I produced an overnight talk show from 1 to 5 a.m. And then it doesn't sound like great hours, but it was the biggest. It was the biggest station on the East Coast at the time.
Which one was that? Was that
WTIC AM?
TIC, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
And you could hear them, everywhere.
Right.
Even before long before the internet came, the AM was obviously something that the signal bounced all over the place.
Was that, what was his name? Bob Steele?
Bob Steele was on after we did 1 to 5 a.m.
To Bob Steele.
Yeah, we did 1 to 5 a.m. Then it was 5 to 5:30 was a news block.
Okay.
And then Bob Steele came at 5 o'clock. And it's funny because I just realized after the number of years that I have been on the radio in Springfield, I'm now like the Bob Steele of Springfield. He was around for 40 years and I've been around for 40 years.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty wild.
Did you ever think when you signed the papers to go into the Connecticut School of Broadcasting that 40 years later you'd be still doing this?
Not only was I not thinking of 40 years later still doing it, I never went into the business to become a morning guy. I just wanted to be on the radio.
Okay.
I just wanted to be a DJ and
because you
spin records.
Yeah, you grew up in the era kind of like I did, where the DJ of the 70s was the man.
Oh, I sat back in I can't even tell you what year it was, but I was riding a bicycle at the time. So it had to have been somewhere between 1970 and 1975. And I watched a live broadcast of another Hartford station that was happening at a Springfield, rather in an Enfield business that was opening right down the road from me. So I rode my bike over there and I watched this guy broadcast from a trailer. And I looked at him like he was a god. It was amazing. And he invited me because I was there for hours,
right.
Just sitting there on my bike watching him for hours. And he invited me inside, and it was like stepping behind that curtain at Oz and actually getting to see the wizard and standing there just mesmerized by the whole experience.
And that has to be, as a young boy, a life-changing event because that steered your entire life in one direction.
It was. And to come full circle. So 35 years later, and I'm guessing at that, it could have been even longer than that, I'm listening to a broadcast from another radio station in Springfield, in fact, one that I had previously worked at, WMAS. And I hear this guy on the radio, and it turned out to be the same guy who was on in Enfield back in the mid-'70s.
Do you remember his name?
His name was Dick McDonough. And I actually called him. He was doing a remote broadcast one day. The day I discovered he was in Springfield, Mass., he was doing a remote broadcast from Jim Dandy in Springfield. And I drove over there and introduced myself and reminded him that I was the young guy, the young kid on the bicycle that he invited inside to the studio, and that now he was a listener of mine. He said, "Oh, I've been listening to you in the morning for years. You guys have a great show." And I said, "Well, you're the
guy to blame."
Exactly. You're the reason I'm in this business.
That is fantastic.
It was wild. It really was. And he was genuinely touched by it, as was I.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you think of some of those longtime broadcasters you look up to, and I will put Ray Herschel in that. When I worked at Channel 40 years ago, Ray Herschel was a god.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Ray.
Yeah.
You've been around, but you look at those, and no matter what career you're in, you know, you and I are in broadcasting, but it could be finance, it could be real estate. You know, you look at those people that those mentors or those icons, and to finally meet them is career changing.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, and even the instructors at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, who were all broadcasters back then, I'd grown up listening to in Hartford, and to be right there, having them standing in front of the class and giving these lessons out was pretty wild.
So, was being on the radio what you expected? You know, you went into it, you know, 70s. I want to spin records. I want to listen to the Moody Blues, Pink Floyd, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles. Was it what you expected?
It was, well, my progression, my professional aspect of the business was all by accident. I mean, I was doing overnights at Rock 102, and there was a one-man morning show that came on at 6 a.m. And I would hang out. I would stay an extra half hour, 40 minutes, just to watch him and listen to him, and you know, pick up tips and get ideas of how to maybe be a morning show broadcaster one day. And then he started flicking the microphone on in that half hour, 45 minutes, and we would have a little back and forth, and management seemed to think it was going pretty good. Okay. So they asked me, they came to me one day and they said, how'd you like to do the mornings, you know, and be a partner with this guy that we've had here for a while? And I said, sure. So I kind of stumbled into it, actually. I never really expected to be a morning guy. And I certainly wasn't looking forward to a long period of life of getting up at 3 a.m. But it happened.
Who was that first morning show?
It was Brian. The guy's name was Brian Hale. So the show was Brian and O'Brien. Oh, and I had 5 different partners over the course of the years at Rock 102. Yeah.
Perfect time to take our first break. We're here with John O'Brien. We'll be right back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone, to the 22 News Plus studios. I'm here with John O'Brien, a Massachusetts Broadcasting Hall of Fame inductee a few years ago. Talk about his history in the local broadcasting world and some of the battles he's facing with his health over the last dozen or so years, right, John?
It's been 14 years.
14 years.
And by the way, I don't know if there's a difference between enshrinee and inductee, but yeah, we were enshrined into the Broadcasting Hall of Fame.
Not the basketball.
Not the basketball. No.
Even though you're tall.
Even with the height, the only way I'll ever get in there is with a ticket.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. So let's talk a little bit about your career. You know, you're in the Massachusetts Broadcaster Hall of Fame. I mean, that has to be an accomplishment in and of itself that you know, nobody seeks to do that.
Nobody seeks to do it, but somebody has to do it for you. In other words, there's a nomination process.
And so you and Bax didn't submit your own names?
No, we didn't. In fact, we didn't even know that's how it was done.
Okay.
And the next thing we knew, yes, we were being nominated for induction. And we were the only team from Western Massachusetts that I believe has ever been inducted into that Hall of Fame. So we ended up doing it that way, but somebody, we don't even know who, had to actually either make a phone call or fill out a form online or something like that.
And then you go through a process. Do you go through that process, or do the judges kind of go through the process? Okay.
They go through the process, and then they contact us, and they let us know. And the problem is that when we were voted in for the Hall of Fame was the middle of COVID. So they ended up putting off the ceremony for about a year and a half. So we were inducted a year and a half after we had actually been chosen to go into it.
Okay, and that was all. The delay was just clearly because of COVID.
Just because of COVID. And then we went in, and they had a lunchtime ceremony, and I believe on a Thursday afternoon or a Tuesday afternoon, and it was a nice ceremony, and it was for both Bax and I were inducted as a team, and that was the only team that was going in that year as well.
Now, you mentioned over your broadcasting career, you had 5 different co-hosts in the morning.
Yeah.
Was Mike Baxendale the longest co-host?
He was the longest and the last.
Okay.
Yeah. He was. We were together 27 years.
27 years. That is a long time.
Longer than the most miserable marriage you can think of.
It's interesting because you two are completely different personalities.
Yeah.
Yet it worked.
That's why it worked. I think that many people have said it as well. I think that's why it worked, because we were 2 completely different people. We had 2 completely different opinions on 99% of everything that we talked about. And it was that difference, not just in beliefs or likes or anything like that, but it was just our personalities were so opposite. We would never have been friends if we had never been business partners together. Yeah.
Just because you're 2 complete opposite people.
Yeah.
Right.
If I met him in a restaurant or a bar somewhere and sat down and started having a conversation with him, within 5 minutes, I'd walk away because I was bored.
And I'm sure Mike would say the same thing.
He probably would.
Right.
He probably would.
But it worked.
Yeah.
You guys had great chemistry, and probably not until the last, I don't know, what is it? It's 2025 now, so maybe 10 years ago, was there even video of the show, right?
No. 10 years ago, there really wasn't. We never really did a lot of video.
Right.
There was the idea of putting cameras inside the studio, but it never came to fruition, and we never did it that way.
So looking across the time with all your co-hosts, what are some of the moments in your broadcasting career that really stand out?
Okay, first of all, you have to be reminded you're speaking to someone with the memory of a chimp, which I didn't realize.
Can I get you a banana, John?
I didn't realize this until I actually looked it up on Wikipedia one day. The chimpanzee has the shortest memory of all mammals.
Really?
I never realized that.
I never would have guessed that.
So now when I assimilate my short-term memory, it's with a chimpanzee.
Well, let me interrupt you there.
Yeah.
Is the short-term memory a thing because of your latest health crisis, or is this something that's lifelong?
I don't know anymore.
Okay.
I've had it, I've had the health issues for 14 years, and I don't remember previous to the 14 years. So it could be a combination of both.
Okay.
It could be just aging, but it could also be having your health deteriorating. But either way, I'm sorry. What was the question?
I was just going to say, and I'm being the bad host because I'm getting you off track.
That's okay.
With a short memory. So, most significant event in your broadcasting career?
Oh boy, that's tough. I would really have to limit it to the Bax and my era because again, I don't have the memory to say otherwise. I would say one of the biggest things. It was the most anticipated interview that I ever had, and yet the biggest disappointment when it was over that had ever occurred.
Ooh.
I'm a big Pink Floyd fan, huge Pink Floyd fan, and Roger Waters was doing interviews, and we had a chance to do it with him. It was almost on a conference call level. There were 3 different stations where we were all asking him questions at the same time, but I really shouldn't say questions, plural. Roger Waters is a very political person. He's an unhappy person, which I can relate to, but nevertheless, he gave dissertations. It wasn't an interview. You asked a question and he just spoke, and you were out of time before he was even done speaking, let alone time to ask a follow-up. So it was one of the biggest disappointments I ever had because I was looking forward to it.
And I think everybody in broadcasting has that. You're ready and prepared for that one interview. It could be an idol like Roger Waters. It could be anybody. It could be a president, anyone.
Yeah.
And you just kind of sit back afterwards. You go, well, that sucked.
Yeah. Speaking of luminaries and things like that, one of the best interviews we had a regular, maybe close to a month. Once a month, we would have Charlie Baker on while he was the governor.
Yep.
And this was back in the day when we were discussing both medical marijuana and gambling at the same time. And I asked him on the air one day, I said, hey, listen, what do you think you and me can do first once these things pass? You want to maybe go to MGM and play some blackjack, or you want to sit in my car and smoke a big fat one? And he chose, not surprisingly, he chose playing cards. So as it turned out, MGM opens, and several months later, I get a phone call from the governor's office saying, hey, we just wanted you to know he needs to be in Springfield for an event at 7 a.m. So he's coming to town the night before to stay in the city, so he'll be ready for 7 a.m. He wants to know if you'd like to meet him at MGM and play some blackjack. And
so you played overnight and then went right to the station to go to work, right?
No, we played 7 o'clock at night.
Okay.
We played about 7 o'clock at night. It was me, the governor, former city councilor Tim Rook, former Chicopee Police Chief Bill Jebb, and someone else who I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was at the time. And Charlie Baker had no idea how to play blackjack. He had he didn't even know what a 5-card Charlie was.
Everybody grew up playing blackjack at the kitchen table with your family and your friends.
But when to make the right decisions, exactly, playing for money. So I was giving him all of the moves to make, and he was following my directions. And in the end, I lost everything, and he won $400.
Shocking that the governor won.
Exactly. Shocking that he won with my direction, and yet I lost everything.
Oh, that's funny. We are up on our next commercial break. We're here with John O'Brien in the 22 News Plus studios. We'll be right back.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone, to the 22 News Plus studios. Today's edition of In Focus. I'm joined across the desk by John O'Brien. He's a former Rock 102 WAQI FM radio personality. He has been on your airwaves and in your life for 40 years.
40 years. Yeah.
So, John, you left the daily grind of broadcasting not that long ago, just a few years ago.
It was close to 3 years now.
Okay. In 2022,
it's been a while.
Give or take.
Yeah, give or take.
So what have you been up to?
Well, not unlike yourself, for a while I have been, and will continue again in the near future to do a podcast.
Okay.
Right after Rock 102 let me go, shortly thereafter, I was picked up by iHeartMedia.
Okay.
And iHeart set me up to do a podcast, which has been on hiatus for a couple of months now because of technical issues, and they've moved studios and they're rebuilding a new studio, and it's going to take a while. And I really no longer have the the physical capability to go in and out of downtown Springfield on a daily basis. So they're making arrangements for me to do it from my home.
Nice.
Which is what I did back during COVID when I was with Rock 102.
Everybody worked from home.
Everyone worked from home. Well, the other two guys, Mike Baxendale and Steve Nagel, the producer, they worked from in studio, but I was immune compromised, so I had to get out of the studio, and I did it from home. But yeah, iHeart has set me up with a podcast, which, as I said, has been on hiatus for some time now, but hopefully we'll be able to start resuming it again in the very near future.
When you were working remotely during COVID, as a listener, I listened to you. You used to listen to you every morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Nobody knew.
You couldn't tell where you were, whether you were here in Western Mass, whether you're place in Florida. You could have been on the moon for all I know.
The way modern technology has progressed, it's you get to a point, and there are people out there. I don't mean to pull back any curtains here, but you don't know when you're listening to somebody on the radio whether or not they are actually where you think they are.
Well, it's funny. Didn't Imus in the Morning? He was longtime New York City based, and then he ended up in like Tucson or something like that.
Yeah, somewhere in Arizona. He had some kind of a ranch for kids.
Right.
And you can do that now. You can sound like you're in, or it doesn't have to be a secret either.
Yeah.
You can tell people, hey, look, I'm down in Florida. I did it for the podcast for the first 2 years of the podcast. I had a house in Florida, and I would go down there in October, and I would bring the equipment with me, which, as you know, is all very portable and easy to move around. And I would go
do
down
the wide shot here so people can see. There's not much here, you had less.
I had a carryable case that I was able to use as a carry-on on the airplane.
Wow.
And I'd go down there and I'd set it up, and I did it from the house for 6 months at a time. And I wasn't trying to hide it from anybody. They knew I was down in Florida. Everybody who paid attention to me over the years knew I wanted to be, and I needed to be, from a health standpoint as well, because the health issues that I had were being exacerbated by the cold of New England.
Right. It's interesting. You touched on the point that if people paid attention to the show, they knew a lot about your personal life.
Yeah, I was pretty open.
You weren't shy about sharing. I mean, marriages, divorces, health crises, whatever you may have faced in your personal life. A lot of broadcasters don't do that.
A lot of them don't do that. A lot of morning show broadcasters don't do that. Many of them do. It's a matter of you want to stand out in the crowd.
Right.
There's an awful lot of opportunities out there, many, many more now than there were when I first started between the internet and the podcasting and things like that.
YouTube, wherever it is.
Yeah. You need to stand out. And my feeling was the more I can reach out to people on a personal level, the more likely they are to come back again the next day. And also, I was relating experiences that most people relate to anyway,
right?
Whether it's divorces or health issues or cancer. There's more than enough people out there that are dealing with those same issues, and maybe in different ways where you can commiserate together without actually having to speak to each other. They're listening to me. They're realizing the experiences I'm having and comparing it to the experiences that they're having, maybe, and it pulls them in. It draws them closer. It draws you closer to them, and vice versa. So I was always very open. I didn't keep a lot of secrets. The ones I did were probably all felonies anyway. So it was just as well.
But you knew a lot of cops throughout the years.
Yeah, that helped. That did help.
But it's interesting, to your point, being open with your listeners brings them back the following day because they relate to you.
Yeah. I received an awful lot of. I don't do Facebook. I'm the Mark Zuckerberg of antisocial behavior. So I don't do a lot of the social media stuff. But yes, there were plenty of people out there who were reaching out to me and saying, hey, I'm going through the same thing you are right now, and I really appreciate your insight into it.
So let's transition perfectly now into your health crisis and battles over the course of the last dozen years or so.
Sure.
You, if memory serves me right, it was 2011. You announced to the audience that you had melanoma, were diagnosed with melanoma. I know your memory's out of a chimp, but do you remember that period of time in your life that,
Oh yeah.
Because you lived alone.
Yeah.
And if memory serves me right, because I was a longtime listener, it was on your back.
It was dead center in my back.
Didn't have
so I had no idea
spouse or anything.
I didn't have the flexibility or the dexterity to even look in a mirror, holding a mirror this way and then trying to look into the mirror behind me. I couldn't do that. I couldn't reach it from the right arm to the left arm.
In the middle.
Right smack, dead bullseye.
So how did you know you had it?
I happened one day to be sitting down, and I sat in such a fashion where my shirt kind of folded up and caught onto this lump, and I reached back as far as I could. I basically was pushing against a wall to get my arm to go back far enough, and I could feel it. I felt a lump. I realized it was not normal. It shouldn't be there. And I had been seeing a dermatologist anyway because, being a pasty white Irish guy,
You and me both.
melanoma is very simple.
Absolutely.
And I had a number of other forms of skin cancer.
Squamous and basal cell.
Squamous,
I've had all those removed
both
myself.
of those. Yeah, I've had dozens of them
You'll appreciate
taken
it.
away.
Another
Yeah.
a friend of mine who's Irish. He calls going to the dermatologist Irish weight loss.
Yeah,
because you always get something lopped off when you go in.
Well, and that's one true reason. The other thing is each of the 3 times that I was determined to be active with cancer, I lost 15 pounds. These were the best. This was the best weight loss program anyone has ever undergone.
But you weren't overweight.
I was back then. I am again now. There were no classes. There were no cardboard meals. There were no online sermons. Right. I just dropped 15 pounds each time that I was diagnosed with cancer. It was perfect.
So how many times have you been diagnosed?
4 times. I've been in remission 3 times.
Okay. So and it's all melanoma.
Well, yes, but there's a misunderstanding with that. It's metastatic melanoma, which means it has spread.
Right.
And it's spread into my lymph nodes, then it's spread into my lungs, now it's spread into my liver, and wherever it originates, that's the kind of cancer you have. You have melanoma in the lungs. You don't have lung cancer.
Interesting.
It's melanoma in your liver, not liver cancer. You could have brain cancer or have melanoma in your brain, and you still don't have brain cancer.
So it's metastatic melanoma?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Meaning that it has spread into multiple other organs.
Now, I remember listening to you in the mornings and you saying you were going on trial drugs.
Yeah, immunotherapy was the trial drug.
Was that what helped keep you alive a dozen years ago?
Mentally, I would say probably yes.
Okay.
And certainly physically. I went to the doctor. We discussed this issue of immunotherapy. It was not a new drug for cancer, but a new drug for melanoma. They had tested it and determined that it worked for melanoma as well. I went on the air one day to explain how the doctor had told me that I would be one of 2 people being treated at the Damore Center in Springfield, one of only 2 people who had this medication.
Wow.
5 minutes later on the air, the phone rings. We answer the phone, and the person on the phone says, "Hey, I thought I'd just give you a call and let you know I'm the other guy." And it was like, wow. It was just an amazing coincidence.
Did you form a bond and a friendship with that person?
We did eventually, but even initially in that first conversation on the air, I said to him, I asked him what he did for a living. He was a former Springfield police officer. He said, my family owns a funeral home in Indian Orchard. So I said, all right, you know what? Let's make a deal. If I go first, you give me a discount on the funeral. And if I go first, I'm sorry, if I go first, one of the other discount on the funeral. The other one was if you go first, I'll give you a Baxter O'Brien t-shirt. And the guy had a great sense of humor. He went along with it. He laughed. He played along with it. We did several YouTube videos together, and we got to know each other pretty well in the time that we had because he passed 4 months later.
Wow.
And it was a real kick for me. I was just devastated by the idea that I was the last one now who was. I mean, eventually there were more people who were put on the drug, but at that moment, those first 2, I was it, and I don't know why I was chosen for it. I've had friends. Mike Belise was a very good friend of mine. He passed. Our producer Steve Nagel, his wife, at a very young 40-something, she passed as well. If they say only the good die young, I guess I'm proof of that.
Absolutely. We're up on our second commercial break, or our next commercial break. We're here with John O'Brien. We'll be right back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back to the 22 News Plus studios for today's edition of In Focus. I'm your host, Patrick Berry. Across the desk from me is John O'Brien. John is a very well-known media personality here in the Springfield radio market. John, thank you for joining me. It's been a great discussion. You and I have passed each other in our careers, over the years, and I've never had the chance to sit down with you. So I'm very fortunate to be able to have this conversation with you.
Glad to do it.
And really, I look at the conversation as you're an industry icon here in Western Massachusetts. Yeah. I'm honored to hear your life story. There is another reason why we're having this conversation. That's your health crisis, your health battles with cancer over the course of the last decade or so. Just before we went to break, you were talking about one of the gentlemen that was on this trial drug with you. He ended up passing very shortly after you guys met each other.
Yeah.
You talked about Steve Nagel's wife, your friend Mike Belize, and both of those people died fairly quickly as well.
Yeah.
And you're still here.
14 years.
You've got to take comfort in that.
I take comfort in it, but you know what? There's also a certain survivor's guilt that comes along with it.
9/11 victims, plane crash survivors, whatever it might be, shooting survivors.
There's a survivor's guilt, and there is a part of me. Look, I have this reputation. I've had this reputation on the radio for years of being this
curmudgeon,
ornery curmudgeon, exactly. And only part of it's an act. A good part of it is really my true personality. And it's one of those things where I've thought in the past about wishing I could change. And then I would stop and say to myself, yeah, but look what it's given me.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's given me this career that I somehow managed to carry on to through 40 years. Why would I want to give it up now? And now that I'm not on the radio on a daily basis, now I'm just an independent curmudgeon. I don't even have to work for anybody.
Run-of-the-mill, get off my grass curmudgeon.
Exactly. The kind of guy who just does it on his own as a hobby. That's the way I've been doing it now for a few years.
But you have had a very successful life. And I won't say successful as in you're rich.
No.
Monetarily, you're rich in experiences. You've had great friendships. Yeah. You've met some wonderful people along the way, except for Roger Waters.
Well, I don't know. He didn't have many friends to begin with.
But you have led a very rich life.
Yeah, I have. I have been, I guess you would say, blessed. I'm not necessarily a very religious person, but I do know that I've had it better than others. I underwent a chemotherapy pill. I never lost a hair.
Wow.
I never got nauseous. I never was forced. I never got physically sick. I mean, there was the very first treatment I ever took kind of made me sick, but again, not with the nausea and what normally comes with nausea. It was a different kind of sick. I would go to bed at 8:30 at night. I would inject myself just under the skin with this interferon medication. I'd wake up around midnight with what felt like the worst flu ever, eventually fall asleep, have the alarm clock wake up or go off at 3:30, get up, come in, do the radio show.
Right.
By 9 o'clock every morning, I was up on the floor in my office, rolled up in a ball for about an hour until that passed. And that was the way it was for 2 years.
Wow.
That was the worst of my experiences. And looking back on it now and knowing what other people have gone through and seeing what other people have gone through, both physically and mentally, I was blessed.
Have you had the opportunity to meet with and help others who are maybe not battling melanoma, but battling some other form of cancer, and maybe a support group, or have you been able to help others?
I know I've helped others by talking about it on the air. Mm-hmm. There have been many, many people, doctors included, who said to me, you're raising awareness.
Absolutely.
You're making people all of a sudden who had been ignoring this spot on their arm or their leg and thinking it would go away. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to the dermatologist to see exactly what it is. Some of them are finding out, in fact, that it's melanoma. In fact, the dermatologist said to me one day, he said, I had a guy came in here. He had the same kind of lump in the same spot and needed the same surgery. Excuse me. And apparently his reply was, "Oh, you mean I need John O'Brien surgery?" It's not exactly Tommy John, but but you know what? If you can have your name attached to something, you take it, I suppose.
To save a life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that was, I didn't do support groups. I believe going on the air every morning was a support group. And it was in both ways. I mean, I may have been raising awareness for some of the listeners, but they were also giving me not advice, but giving me the desire and the help to go through and get through what was going on with me.
And we both know men don't focus on their health.
No.
It's the last thing on our minds, So to hear you every morning talk about what you were going through, I know, through anecdotally that other guys out there, because, Rock 102's morning show, you and Bax and Steve, primarily men listeners, which was great because that got those male listeners to focus a little bit more on their health. And God knows how many lives you saved with the John O'Brien surgery.
Well, or at the very least was able to help people stop the problem before it became too big of a problem.
So where are you today in your cancer journey?
Now we're back active. It's no longer in remission. It came back in January. I was hospitalized. I've been hospitalized 4 times since the beginning of 2025. And it came back. It has spread into my liver. And a few years ago now, I remember asking the doctor at one point whether or not I had a prognosis. And the reply was, we're not anywhere near that. We don't need to talk about that yet. This time, after it came back for this most recent bout, I asked that question again. Excuse me. And the answer that I got was 6 to 12 months. I was told I had 6 to 12 months left. Now, obviously, lots of doctors say things like that and are wrong, and people last much longer than their initial prognosis. And I'm expecting and hoping that that's going to be the case with me as well. But I am now currently in hospice. I have nurses who come to my house on a semi-regular basis. I'm no longer taking treatments. There really aren't any treatments left at this point to go with. But all I have to do is remind myself that it's been 14 years. I mean, nobody walks around with stage 4 cancer of any type for 14 years. So
how old were you when you were first diagnosed?
Well, how old am I now? I would have been, it was 50. Actually, 50. Once I hit 50, my life has consistently gone downhill.
But that goes back to our conversation a moment ago about, okay, you're 50 years old and now you're having this conversation for the public to hear. And how many other 50-year-olds are out there going, oh, geez, he's not that old. I need to go see my doctor.
I need to get, and you should. I don't want to sound like a PSA, but you should, male or female. If you go to a dermatologist once a year and let them look, and what you think might be just a freckle can turn out to be something completely different, or it could be hidden. I mean, in the scalp is where a lot of people have it.
And you don't have to be a pasty white Irish guy to get melanoma.
No. In fact, pasty white Irish guys are probably the lowest level of people who do have it, because you've got, for people our age, I'm sorry, I'm assuming you're close to my age.
Not far behind.
But, they laid out in the sun. They put on baby oil. They spent hours like that. I
joke, as a kid, my parents didn't believe in sun lotion. It was burn, peel, repeat all summer long.
Yeah, exactly.
We go down to the Connecticut shore, and I remember peeling skin off my shoulders.
Sure. And every one of those burns was doing just a little bit more damage towards something more permanent. And I forgot the question.
That's all right. Yeah. We're up on our next break.
Right.
So
there you go.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back to the 22 News Plus studios for this edition of In Focus. I am joined across the desk in the studio with John O'Brien, famous local celebrity, broadcast celebrity here in Western Mass. Started his career actually in the Hartford radio market and then spent 40 years, late 80s into the early 2020s, right here in the Springfield television market. You know, John, we talked a moment ago about your lasting impact. You know, you didn't go to support groups. You're not out there. You utilize the radio waves of WAQY to help people understand their health battles. But your impact is still being felt. Recently, there was a fundraiser that was taking place, for I think it was the Chicopee Police Department.
Yeah, it
correct.
was.
Tell me about that fundraiser and how you getting involved helped.
We had one of my friends somewhere had decided that we should do. I didn't get the opportunity to retire the way I felt I kind of earned. You know, after 37
Understood.
years at the place, you kind of expect some kind of fanfare, and unfortunately, I didn't go out that way. So some of my friends got together and decided we needed to have an event where we could make up for that loss. So, given the time crunch that we were working with,
Because of your health?
No, because of when they wanted to do it.
Oh, gotcha.
They came up with the idea and they wanted to do it within like 3 weeks. So once you start checking the halls and places around Springfield, most everything is booked up at least 3 weeks in advance. So we piggybacked with a toy fund or some kind of children's toy thing for, it's not Toys for Tots, it's not what I'm trying to say, with the Chicopee Police. And we ended up at the Elks Hall, the Elks Lodge on Granby Road in Chicopee, which had about 270 seats. And we sold out in a little over 24 hours. It was very fast. There were a lot of people making phone calls to my friends saying, "Hey, can I get tickets? Can I get tickets?" And all my friends were having to tell them all, no, sorry, it's too late. It went that fast.
It's funny you say that because when I heard about it, I wanted to get tickets, and I think I heard about it in the 23rd and a half hour.
Yeah.
And by the time I went up, they were gone.
Yeah. They sold very, very fast. We were lucky. But 5 or so of my friends came up. We also had Sheriff Cochee was out there. Mm-hmm. We were supposed to have Mayor Sarno, but unfortunately he came down with some kind of bug the day before.
Got a health crisis.
He's dealing with cancer as well. We don't know what type. He hasn't disclosed that. There are people who choose to be private with this stuff, and God bless them. They earned that right. But yeah, he's dealing with it on his own. But the event was a huge success. We had about 5 people, friends, like I said, besides the sheriff, who came up, roasted me. Then I came up at the end and gave my own 9-minute speech, and it went over really, really well.
It's funny because I think this gave a lot of people the opportunity to relive Baxton O'Brien for just a short period of time, one evening, and thank you for your years of entertaining us and your curmudgeonry, if that's a word.
Yeah, well, we can make it one. It is now.
It's like the John O'Brien surgery, right? It's curmudgeonry. But I think it was a great way to give you your due.
Yeah, and it was nice because Bax and I had kind of lost touch after my departure, and we had. Every once in a while, we would run into each other at the same place, and there really was no communication between us. And that had nothing to do with me being fired. That was the way our relationship evolved.
Well, it was like you said,
devolved.
If you had just bumped into each other in a random restaurant or a bar or something, the relationship wouldn't have been there.
Exactly.
You stopped working together, just the way it happened.
And then one day he made, this would have been, a couple of weeks before the roast actually ever happened. He went online, made some kind of a video, and someone brought it to my attention, and I saw it. And I decided, this was a good time to bury the hatchet. And I reached out to him and asked him if he wanted to be a part of the roast, and he said yes, and he was. So he was one of the speakers, and And now I've actually seen him a couple of times since then, and things seem to have worked out well where
Nice.
the two of us are concerned.
Good to hear.
Mm.
Do you keep, I mean, kind of getting off track a little bit.
Yeah.
You keep so Bax was your fifth co-host. You
Yeah.
keep in touch with any of the four other ones?
None. The very first one left. He was also dumped unceremoniously.
If that's the nature of this business.
If it doesn't happen, then you're not doing it right. He went back to Michigan, which is where he was from.
Okay.
The second one has since passed away.
Oh.
The third one, third and fourth, I've had no contact with since the last day we worked together.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, that's what happens in this industry, and a lot of times, and you used to point this out on the radio all the time when it comes to 22 News or Western Mass News. This is a starting market.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's TV, radio,
or ending.
True.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What are you saying about me? No, but it is. I mean, we get a lot of young talent come in here, and it's rare that you have your friend Barry Krieger, Dave Madsen, a Rich Teddemer, the guys that come in and spend a career here.
Yeah.
It's rare.
Television more so than radio.
Right.
This market is an anomaly to the actual way that television or radio works. Yeah.
Cy Becker.
And when I was a kid, I thought I really wanted to do that. I wanted to be, like I was joining the Navy. I wanted to see places. I wanted to go from one city to the next. And when it didn't happen, and then I finally started doing mornings and then became successful at it, then it was the opposite. It was like, okay, now I want to stay here. I don't mind this big fish in a small pond mentality.
Right.
If I can stay here and be successful, be around family, be around places I'm familiar with, then I would rather do that.
But this industry, I think radio more so than television, changed dramatically. I mean, think of the syndicated radio shows. I mean, we talked about it earlier. You don't know if there's somebody, at the local station, here in Springfield or East Longmeadow. They could be anywhere.
Exactly.
Worcester, Boston, Tucson.
Or Europe. I mean, one of the first things that really blew my mind about that was during the first Gulf War. When we would get phone calls in the middle of the show, because I don't know the time difference, but it was clearly established that there were kids from Western Massachusetts who were in the military that were over in Iran or Iraq, rather, fighting the Gulf War and listening to us on the radio. It might have been like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and every once in a while we'd get a phone call from one of them. And they say, "Hey, listen, I'm in Afghanistan,
Sergeant so and so."
Yeah. It was, and that was wild. That helped change things and made you realize the kind of reach you had
global.
Because if you weren't syndicated, people used to think you weren't successful.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, syndication went away. The internet came along, and everybody was syndicated.
Exactly.
It was no big deal anymore.
Right. So what's next for you?
Dying, apparently.
All of us. That's next for all of us.
Yes, but not many of us are handed a calendar that has missing pages on it. This is the way I've dealt with this for 14 years. If you can't have a sense of humor about it, and some people can't, and if that's their nature, that's their right. But I happen to have a sense of humor, or can at least look at this and say to myself, I got 14 years of walking around with this stuff that nobody else, most other people don't get that much time.
Right.
So now, facing reality, I try to have a sense of humor with it. I don't have a lot of long-term plans lined up. I'm not signing up for any magazine subscriptions. I'm not joining any Record of the Month clubs.
The Columbia House
no, thankfully, they've stopped bothering me. The only ones who won't stop bothering me are AARP. But who knows? Like I said, the podcast I was doing is presumably going to be getting restarted again very soon.
Good.
But beyond that, I don't make a lot of plans. As I said from the start, doctors aren't always right about this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
But I'm still not making any long-term plans.
Have you seen a number of doctors, in this case, a doctor says you've got 6 to 12 months. Do you then go and see somebody else and for a different opinion?
I've been very lucky. First of all, I've been getting treated since the beginning at the Damore Center in Springfield. But I also, first, I have a niece who is a nurse I'm all of a sudden having a brain fart.
That's
here.
all right. You have a niece. We got that part.
I have a niece at Dana-Farber.
Okay.
Dana-Farber in Boston. I went to Dana-Farber after the initial diagnosis 14 years ago, just to get it confirmed.
Right.
And I had it confirmed, not only confirmed that I had the melanoma, but also confirmed the treatment program that the folks at the Damore Center had suggested. And that's when I discovered as well, once you open a door with the folks at the Damore Center, excuse me, that door is always open.
Right.
And any subsequent examination, I lucked out. I know people who've had to drive to Boston a couple of times a week, and I'm like, that alone would make me want to not even bother treating the cancer. I was lucky. I went up there once or twice to have one or two opinions,
right, and then get treated
seconded, and then come back and have the treatments done here. Yeah.
Well, John, I want to thank you so very much for giving me a big chunk of your day today. I greatly appreciate it. I have faith that the 6 to 12 month diagnosis or prediction is not going to happen.
Well, now it's 5 to 12.
Now it's 5 to 12.
Yeah, it's 5 to 12.
But
thank God
I
there's
have a
31
feeling you're
days.
going to be around for a long time.
I hope
John,
so.
I wish you well. Thank you
Thank you very much, Patrick. Appreciate it.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.